know who you're talking to and why they should invest in you and how much. If you identify a group that usually invests in, say, $10 million as a bare minimum, but you only need, say, $2 million to meet your needs, which, by the way, that piece is really critical. Finding out how much you should actually capital raise. You shouldn't really capital raise any more than you actually need to achieve your goal. Well, what is your goal? I don't know what that is. So identify how much you actually need. But if you only need $2 million and their minimum investment is $10 million, that's already not a good fit. So know who you're talking to, right? So tip number 3 is you're gonna be told no, okay? If you're told no, I don't wanna invest in you, this is actually a really key feature in this industry that I find more prevalent than many other industries. Some owners get very defensive. Don't get defensive. Do not get defensive because it's not personal. It's just money. Money is transactional. Money is a tangible item that I'm going to give to you, but I want a return on it. It's nothing personal. Don't get personal. Don't get defensive. Instead, look at it as a learning experience. Learn from the fact on why they don't want to invest in you. Maybe you have a really bad management team and you don't even know it. Maybe you have too much risk that you haven't identified, but they've identified through due diligence and through pre-due diligence, right? So once you've identified the fact that you're maybe not an attractive target, debrief your team. Ask yourself, how can we make it better? How do we make ourselves more attractive? Maybe we need to take out certain things. Maybe we want to implement different types of resources. Maybe we want to take a different direction. Maybe you don't want to be acquired. I don't know. But really, see if it's, essentially, develop some resilience and have a thick skin, right? I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. Again, we've already talked about the right amount to ask, but also don't under ask either. If you think it's going to take $2 million, don't be afraid to ask for more, a little bit more, just as a cushion. Don't under ask, because if you under ask, then that's already really poor planning, because then your investors are going to give you that money at 1.5 and you really need 2. You're going to underperform. They're not going to get the returns. Then it just looks bad on everybody. Okay. The last tip is it's really the returns aspect. It's not enough to tell people that they're going to get their money back. When you're investing money, when investors are looking for you as a potential target to invest money, they're going to say, if I give you this much, my desired return is this. How are you going to take your EBITDA value from 1 to 2 to 3, right? If you're going under a debt structure, it's very different than an equity structure. Depending on which structure you go in under, the goals may be very different. But you have to understand, it's not enough to just say, oh, don't worry, you're going to get your money back. Well, that doesn't do me any good. I want my money back in ×3. Okay? It's really, from an investor's point of view, they're really looking at your company as a risk-adjusted return. They're looking at your company. They're going to look at your valuation, your assets, your intangible assets. What's the value of your IP? What's the value of your cash flow? Do you have cash flow? Do you have a good management team? What is the attrition rate of your management team? Those are all risks. What's the risk-adjusted value of your company? And that's how much the allocation of capital they're going to give to you.
Thank you, Richard. So in the last part of the business impact section of this session, we'll close with branding and marketing in cannabis with the 2 branding and marketing queen gurus here. So let's, we'll take the next maybe 3 to 5 minutes to talk about that, and we'll end with social equity and social impact.
Yeah, where would you like me to begin, Kevin? I guess I love learning too, which I should have asked at the beginning, who works in cannabis currently? You sell products to customers, and I'm assuming everybody else wants to work in cannabis to some extent. Cultivators, brands, a little bit of both, selling here in Texas predominantly.
Might be some feds in here,
Hey, if I ask if they're a cop, they have to say they're a cop. Any cops in here? We're Yeah, I think, the kind of big reality with cannabis is you can't play the same game that everybody else is playing. We don't have the luxury of selling on places like Amazon. We don't have the luxury of taking out advertising on Google and even being on social media. And then there's the whole censorship, even if you're creating organic content. I know Kim here has been dinged a couple times. I've been kicked off Instagram. I'm sure Shelby has stories with her brand. So it's like, that's like the baseline. How do you overcome that? How do you kind of navigate around it? And I think for us, it really is founded by having a really strong brand and understanding, again, who my customer is and how I'm trying to go to market. What am I selling to them and who am I? Why are they coming to me? And so I can only speak for my brand, but we wanted to be what we would like to see as consumers. So maybe that was like bad marketing 101. It's like, build it for other people, don't build it for yourself. But I built it for myself. And we realized our customer base is actually a lot older. They're like 50, 55 plus, and they are maybe a little bit more curious about cannabis. They don't know a lot of things. I mean, a small example is we sell a lot of smokable products. When we launched our business, we were selling pre-rolls, and we had a lot of customers who were like, what is a pre-roll? How do I smoke a pre-roll? What do I do with this? And me, I'm like, you put it in your mouth and you light it and you inhale it. Like, it's really easy.
Like a cigarette.
But we took a video on our inexpensive but very expensive iPhone. So that point is just, you don't need crazy technology like Execute your branding and vision and things like that. But we made a video, how to smoke a joint. I put it on YouTube. That video has over 120,000 views. How to smoke? I didn't invent smoking joints. Like, I'm not a poster child for like how do you do this basic task that like me at like 17 learned to do. But that was a thing that we were able to lean into, kind of taking these frequently asked questions, realizing who our customer base was, and then I think Kevin wanted me to touch on too, because that's kind of like our bread and butter. My sister and I were a family brand, co-founded by me and my two younger sisters. We're really big on content, and so I think where I can't go advertise on Google, I really lean into content in places that I own, or at least have a better chance at succeeding, getting my message out to an audience. So, for example, we do play on Instagram. I did mention that Instagram can ding you. That's just kind of like a par for the course. Consumers are on these platforms, so I don't not want to be on those platforms. So for us, we're not on everything, but we do own our brand, handle on Twitter and Pinterest. Even though I'm not really on Twitter or Pinterest, I want to own it just to have that brand ownership. But I think for me, it's your website. Your website is a place that nobody can tell you what you can and can't post. Your website is a place that you want to convert. That's where if you're making transactions, if you're selling direct to consumer, they're coming to your website. You might be a distributed brand selling in other dispensaries. That's a whole separate, kind of like model and situation. But I sell my own products. I'm direct to consumer. My whole goal is to meet you out in the world at an event, online, through word of mouth, and get you to my website, where I then have photos and videos and FAQs and blogs and all these other types of content that can educate the consumer, guide them along their consumer journey, and ultimately have that person add my products to cart. I know it sounds like a lot, but when you start to look at it a little bit of what is going to help make that person trust me more, and that's kind of where we try to approach content creation, is like, how do I build trust with the person who is receiving or coming across this piece of content, and then leaning into what's working. So like I shared, YouTube, relatively low impact if you don't mind being in front of a camera, or you have a friend who doesn't mind being in front of the camera. It's also a major search engine. So you can create video content. It doesn't have to be flashy, fancy. I think you're seeing a twist, I was gonna say a split, but a twist now. People are responding to organic, and I don't mean like organic, but I mean like raw. Like, they don't want filters. They don't want you like edit your intro and outro in. They just like want to see you put video content out there. And you're even seeing that reflected in platforms like Instagram, trending more towards platforms like TikTok, where Reels are very popular. The last note I'll share, when these platforms are presenting new features to you, take advantage of them. I'll be the first person to say I love photos, but Instagram really wants me to like videos. So I'm gonna make video content, and I'm gonna maybe, piss and shit the whole way there, but I'm gonna do it because that's what these platforms want to see. And so if you are reluctant to the tools that are out there, I think there's a lot of, final point I should say, there's a lot of resistance, I think, in the cannabis industry at large, of people who are like, well, these platforms aren't friendly for me. It's like, where are your customers? Your customers aren't on this cannabis-specific social media app. I'm sorry for everybody who's trying to get me to go use your random cannabis social media app.
Yeah.
My customers aren't there. I want to go talk to the, 75 grandma or your brother-in-law, and where are they? They're in these Facebook groups. So it's like, how do you get creative to weather the storm of social media, knowing that it's a necessary evil that you have to use? And if you want more marketing, insight, tips, whatever, I do a whole podcast on it. We can get into the nitty gritty, what you can't say, this, that, and the other, but the whole point is you should have a brand, know what your mission is, and then figure out what channels you're gonna get those messages out to your target customer. Because a megaphone speaks to everyone, but not everybody's gonna be your customer. So who's your customer and how do you speak to them?
Yeah. I mean, segue a little bit on that. I use everything around Dallas. Dallas Sites 101. One of the best partners, I can say, Cannabis Cup, you know. We try to work with local people because we pack off of their followings. We are very girl heavy, sex sells. We're not reinventing the wheel here at Moon Taxi. We have beautiful women sell to you. So not only are we making it easier to approach with silly questions and things like that, when you feel unsure, everything's very comfortable in our brand. So when you walk into our store, walls are clean except for our art. Our merchandise is very loud, and our product, very nostalgic. You look like you're in a dispensary with our products. So again, we already knew our niche that we were going after, but I think for us it was, again, how do we get the reach on social media without necessarily getting blocked or shut down? And again, Dallas Sites, farmers markets, any of those small events, and I think that's a great another way to get a proof of concept before asking for money. That's what I did. We started a proof of concept month-to-month rent. It was like probably $1,500 a month. Bought our first product, we only had gummies. In 1 month, we sold about 35,000. So we knew I could say, hey, we need more money to expand, let's do this quicker. But farmers markets, pop-ups, those things are great, low cost, have yourself a tent, brand it out well. Just get some sales on the books because truly, you will notice how things sort of navigate or organically expand themselves. You'll notice the market talks to you. But especially with branding, like I said, with Store A, that was just CBD, very clean, and then Moon Taxi